What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. And as always, we have ourselves a jam-packed show as we have a lot to get into in the world of volleyball, such as UC Irvine knocking off number 1 Long Beach State. Did they get a 2-for-1 deal, or did they split with the Beach? Also, UCLA locked up the MPSF title with 2 wins over Concordia. Now can they win the MPSF tournament at USC? Also, how about Grand Canyon picking up 2 sweeps over Pepperdine? Fort Valley State also locked up the SIAC Conference. Penn State outlasted a scrappy George Mason team. And on the beach volleyball side, UCLA takes down USC in the Center of Effort Finals. Are the Bruins for real in terms of winning all the way to the championship? Or will USC have something to say as the two also face off this week? Also, we have a lot of Surf League madness that's been happening this past week. Edison knocked off Huntington Beach knocked off Newport Harbor, Corona Del Mar yesterday outlasted Edison. What is going on in that Surf League? And we have a little bit of Pro Volleyball Federation to discuss as we have the Atlanta Vibe clinching the first playoff spot. So hand me a volleyball, set up the net, because I'm about to serve up some volleyball action here on Set Point. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of Set Point here on IESR Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome all to another edition of Set Point. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday morning, Tuesday wherever you are listening from. Either way, you've made your way into episode 242 of Set Point. And without any further delay, let us begin. But first and foremost, Set Point would not be where it's live on Spreaker without IESR Radio providing the platform to go live. Please do follow IESR Radio on several different social media platforms such as X, formerly known as Twitter, TikTok, and on Instagram. We also have a Facebook page for those that still use Facebook. All you just have to do is like us and then follow, and that's how you're able to follow us after you type in the word IE Sports and then radio. And we have a website, iesportsradio.com, for all of your latest sports news, our blog, our Hall of Fame, our Fans of the Month, our pages dedicated to each podcast, such as Set Point, our community forum, and our merchandise shop. For the last 9 years, soon to be less than a month, going to be 10 years, IESR Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Thank you to everyone for all of your support and for making IESR Radio your direct feed for all that sports. A huge shout to our sponsors, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, the single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, low in sugar, and it's high in protein. This is some of the best jerky you can get your hands on, and all you have to do is visit planetjerky.net and place your order. In addition, prices are slashed for the time being, and if you buy an order's worth of $50 or more, you'll get it shipped for free. Once again, a huge shout out to our sponsor, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet. Our second sponsor is Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch. Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or friend and you want to add their smile when they receive it. If that's the case, then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts is just for you. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. Follow them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps. And the way you can follow Set Point on social media is on X, formerly known as Twitter, at set_point.ie, and on Instagram, at set_point.iesr. And you can follow me, Teran Rodriguez, on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Teran Rodriguez1. Also, if you're listening live on Spreaker, you will notice there's a support button. If you want to become a supporter of Set Point on IESR Radio, your direct feed for all that sports, it costs $5 a month. This will get you access to past interviews not posted on Instagram or that's been lost in the sauce. And you'll also get access to future episodes of Set Point Extra Points, which are video interviews with coaches, players, and anyone involved in the sport of volleyball, which I will hopefully be firing up fairly soon, if not maybe sometime in the future. But if you do want to support Set Point on Spreaker and become a member of the Set Point Supporters Club, it costs $5 a month on Spreaker. If you do, then that's awesome. But another way you could just support Set Point is by just basically sharing the show with your friends, basically just telling everyone what Set Point is all about, that I'm all about growing the game of volleyball. So, without any further delay, let's begin. So before I get on into the NCAA men's volleyball side of things, I do have to go over why I'm doing this show on Tuesday as opposed to my Monday. So yesterday I actually went to a high school boys volleyball match, and one of my former guests, Katie Thompson, she is the head coach of Corona Del Mar, and they were playing Edison. So I really was under the debate of, should I go to this match or should I just keep on doing Set Point on Monday? And I made the correct call by going to it because it was a 5-set thriller, but we'll talk a little high school boys volleyball later on. Right now, let us discuss a little NCAA men's volleyball, as last week was week 15 of the NCAA men's volleyball season, as conference tournaments, courtesy of the MIVA, got underway. So let's discuss a little bit of the MIVA tournament, because there wasn't too much to discuss, as every team that was hosting advanced. As Ball State advanced, Ball State, the top seed, swept Queens to advance to the semifinals, which, since they're the top seed, they will be hosting the entirety of the MIVA tournament going forward in the semifinals and final. And then Loyola swept McKendree. I was rather impressed that McKendree was able to, Loyola was able to sweep McKendree. I thought that that one is at least going to go 4 or 5, but Loyola really took care of them. And then Ohio State took down Lewis in 4. Scrappy Lewis team, but the Buckeyes were the better team. And this was the prediction I missed right here. Lindenwood took down Purdue Fort Wayne in straight sets. Now, I was kind of under the impression that this was going to be a toss-up or a pick-em, because both teams were playing pretty solid. They weren't playing out of this world, but honestly, I was rather impressed by Lindenwood. They really showed their stuff. They really strut their stuff against Purdue Fort Wayne. They took advantage of the home court, and I was just downright impressed. But that's basically that for the MIVA side of things. Let's go to the Big West Conference side of things, but before I continue, so I got that pick wrong, Lindenwood versus Purdue Fort Wayne. So basically I was 3 for 4 on my picks. The semifinals will be Ball State versus Lindenwood, and then Ohio State versus Loyola. And I'm still going with my prediction of Ohio State winning it all. But let's jump to Friday. So Friday I actually attended this match, and oh my goodness, this was amazing. This was a great match. UC Irvine had its senior night. Number 4 UC Irvine had its senior night against number 1 Long Beach State. And the Anteaters did not disappoint, as they swept Long Beach State. I was rather impressed by how UC Irvine just played. They just played so serious. Like their season was on the line, and they played like they really wanted to make the NCAA tournament. Because let's be honest, UC Irvine is basically in win now mode. They knew that if they wanted to make the NCAA tournament as an at-large, they needed at least 1, if not 2 wins over Long Beach State. And in addition to that, they knew they had locked up at least a top 2 seed. But honestly, I was not expecting a sweep. I knew UC Irvine was going to come fired up, but to basically sweep the number 1 team is just rather impressive. They jumped out to a 5-0 lead in set 1, and that's all you need to know. Long Beach State just looked out of it. They didn't start Clark Godbold. They started Nathan Harlan. Obviously, Clark Godbold hasn't been 100%. He hasn't been up to snuff, and Nathan Harlan has had the hot hand. But I will say, Alan Knipe kind of told me that was kind of a mistake. UC Irvine won the first set 25-17. They trailed for a good chunk of set 2, but then once they kind of crossed into the 20-point mark, they really kicked it into high gear as they took that second set 25-21. Then the third set, they jumped out to an early lead, and they never looked back as they won the third set 25-21. The Ant-Ears were led by Halir Heno, who had 14 kills. Will Darcy added 13 kills. Max Grigoriev had added 8 kills. Brett Sheward had 39 assists to go along with 5 digs. UC Irvine had 6 service aces, 3 coming from Grigoriev, 2 coming from Halir Heno, 1 coming from Darcy. All in all for UC Irvine, it was just a great night for them overall. They knew that this was their senior night and they wanted to send all their seniors off. And they did so with, I wouldn't say the greatest of ease, but they did so with so much aggression and so much mental toughness. As Long Beach State was led by Sotiris Shapanis, he had 9 kills. Clark Godbold came off the bench and added 8 kills. That's kind of where the buck stopped, as the Beach hit 273 compared to UC Irvine's 397. It's UC Irvine's second win over a number 1 team, as the first one came against Grand Canyon in the Outrigger Invitation. But the second round between UC Irvine and Long Beach State was a little bit more different, as this one actually had a lot of implications in terms of the Big West Conference tournament, as if UC Irvine were to win that one, they'd be the number 1 seed, and they would have a share of the regular season Big West Conference title. But if Long Beach State won, then they wouldn't be sharing the conference title, and they'd be the number 1 seed. And the first set was rather dramatic, as Long Beach State actually led 24-22, and then UC Irvine came back. But eventually, when Long Beach State led 26-25, Clark Godbold served an ace. He was reinserted back into that starting lineup, and that was a great move by Alan Knipe. You got to put your senior starter back in, and it looked like Clark Godbold was his strong, I wouldn't say strong dominant self, but he was strong overall. He had 7 kills. Long Beach State eventually took that first set 27-25, and the second set was rather tight and congested, as it was basically a tug of war, as it was a 1-point lead by UC Irvine at the media timeout. But Long Beach State eventually pulled away late in that second set, and they took it 25-21. Then the third set, Long Beach State got off to a hot start, and they just did not relinquish the lead. They blocked fairly well, too, even though it doesn't show. It's 8.5-6. Obviously, Long Beach State blocked well. They served well, as they had 7 aces compared to UC Irvine's 2. And the Ant-Ears also missed 18 serves to boot as well. As Long Beach State took the third set 25-17, the Beach hit 431, even though UC Irvine hit 359, as Sotiris Shapanis led the Beach with 13 kills. Skylar Varga added 9 kills. Like I mentioned, Clark Godbold, he had 7 kills. Something else that the Beach excelled in was they actually fed the middle. They actually got the ball to their middles effectively. It wasn't like the previous night where they struggled to get the ball into the middle up until like the third set. UC Irvine was led by Halir Heno, who had 13 kills. Nolan Flexen added 9 kills. Unfortunately, it was nowhere near enough, as UC Irvine is the 2 seed, and they finished second in the Big West Conference, which is no ultimate big deal. And I mean, I will say, the Ant-Ears still have a really good shot at being the final at-large, or one of the 2 at-larges to make the NCAA tournament. I would be very shocked if UC Irvine was left out because of their body of work. I think their body of work has been rather impressive. And GCU, I'll go over the quick hits later, but like I mentioned in the intro, GCU swept Pepperdine twice, but they finished right behind UC Irvine in the MPSF. But going back to the Big West Conference, we had another upset this past week in the Big West Conference. This was UC San Diego, unranked UC San Diego, sweeping number 5 Hawaii in straight sets. This was the second match of a back-to-back, as the Tritons took the match 27-25, 25-21, 25-20. Sebastian Lara led the way with 14 kills. He hit 478. Anthony Sherfon had 13 kills. He hit 310. Keone Tim led Hawaii with 12 kills. Unfortunately, it was not the greatest night for Luis Sakanoko. He had 4 kills and he hit in the negatives. But the silver lining for Hawaii is that they got the bad loss out of the way, and now they can only go up from here. And Hawaii knew that after its win against UC San Diego, they locked up the 3 seed. They couldn't go any lower than 3, which I think was good. For UC San Diego, they managed to finish 4th in the Big West Conference, which I guess is pretty good. They were actually chosen to finish tied for the bottom with CSUN, who finished 5th, and then UC Santa Barbara finished 6th. But for UC San Diego, they're still a young team. That CSUN UC San Diego matchup in the Big West Conference first round is going to be rather interesting, but more on that later. But for Hawaii, I think they'll be fine going forward. They only have their 5 out of their 6 losses came courtesy of the Big West, and that kind of says a lot just because CSUN has drastically improved. Long Beach State obviously was the number 1 team up until that one loss where they got swept by UC Irvine. UC Irvine obviously was improved, and that other loss came at the hands of Loyola, which was well early in the season. But some other quick hits right here. We had Penn State outlasting George Mason in round 1 of the series between them and George Mason. Friday, all 3 EIVA matches went 5 sets as Penn State was able to beat George Mason. You also had Charleston pulling off an upset over Princeton. That was a big win right there. And you also had NJIT beating Harvard, which was another huge win. You'll see how much that win matters. But for Penn State, they outlasted George Mason, thus clinching the number 1 seed of the EIVA tournament and also the EIVA regular season title, as the Nittany Lions were led by John Kerr, who had 23 kills. Owen Rose and Toby Ezeonu both had 7 kills. Ezeonu hit 700, as Penn State as a team, they hit 418. Now the 5th set was actually rather tight. Well, the 3rd set was too. But the 5th set, Penn State didn't trail, but George Mason was not going to let them off the hook that easy, as Penn State only won that one by 2, but still a pretty solid night for George Mason, as they almost pulled off the win over Penn State, but just fell short, as the Patriots were led by Jack Bowles, who had 19 kills. Omar Hoyos had 13 kills. The Patriots hit 252. They only had 2 blocks on the night as a team. Penn State as a team, they had 12. And the serves were pretty even for the most part, as well as the digs. But Penn State was able to pull out that first win. And then second win, Penn State wound up winning in 4, as the Nittany Lions were led by John Kerr, who had 20 kills. Mihal Kowal added 10 kills. Penn State hit 389 as they capped off a undefeated regular season conference championship win. George Mason, which finished second in the EIVA, they were led by Jack Bowles and Omar Hoyos, who both had 11 kills. Colin Heath had 9 kills. The Patriots hit 178 as they also got outblocked 11 to 7.5. Aces and errors were pretty even, and Penn State outdug George Mason 32 to 19. But Penn State is the number 1 seed. The EIVA tournament goes through Rec Hall. And then jumping to the SIAC, Fort Valley State took down Edward Waters in 4 sets to lock up the SIAC conference title and the number 1 seed. Now, here's something everyone needs to realize. Edward Waters, unfortunately, cannot make the NCAA tournament because it has something to do with like transition or them being only in their second year and whatnot. But unfortunately, Edward Waters, even if they win the SIAC tournament, they are ineligible for the NCAA tournament. So in the event where Edward Waters does win the SIAC tournament, that will go to the runner-up. But for this matchup, Fort Valley State defended home court, and they took down Edward Waters in 4, as the Wildcats were led by Shea Cooper, who had 13 kills. Jackson Hicks added 11 kills. Edward Waters was led by Tavion Ford, who had 19 kills. Richard Hendricks added 16 kills. Fort Valley State hit 358, and it wasn't really much of a block party, as Edward Waters outblocked Fort Valley State 3-2 as a team. And then the digs were in favor of Fort Valley State 38-32. Fort Valley State out-aced Edward Waters by 2 and had 2 more service errors than Edward Waters. But that's that for the SIAC. So some quick hits right here. Like I mentioned, GCU swept Pepperdine twice, which was rather impressive. Stanford took down USC twice. The first night they won in 3, and then the second night they wound up winning in 4. UCLA swept Concordia Irvine both times, as the Bruins are the number 1 seed of the MPSF tournament. Now it's all a matter of them avoiding the bid stealers. So that's that for the Week 15 recap of the NCAA men's volleyball season. I know it was a little short, but we got a lot of volleyball to discuss, and we'll circle the wagons back to NCAA men's volleyball a little bit later. But right now, we have to go over the AVCA men's volleyball coaches poll, and we have a new number 1. UCLA is the new number 1. After Long Beach State's loss to UC Irvine, the Beach is down to number 2. They actually are only 5 points back, as they garnered 10 first-place votes out of the 23. UCLA had 13 first-place votes, and they had 5 more points than the Beach. They're the new number 1. UC Irvine moved up to 3. Grand Canyon moved down to 4. Hawaii stayed put at 5, even though they had that tough loss to UC San Diego. BYU stayed at 6. Stanford stayed at 7. Penn State stayed at 8. Pepperdine stayed at 9. Ball State moved into the top 10, while Ohio State moved down a spot. Loyola Chicago, USC both stayed put at 12 and 13. CSUN also stayed put at 14. George Mason moved up to 15, even though they lost twice to Penn State. Lewis moved down a spot, as their season is unfortunately over. Princeton stayed put at 17. They have a first-round EIVA conference tournament match. McKendree stayed put at 18. Lindenwood, even though they're still alive in the MIVA tournament, they're at 19, right behind McKendree and Lewis. And then UC San Diego, courtesy of their win over Hawaii, they jumped up into the number 20 position, knocking out Purdue Fort Wayne, whose season is unfortunately over. So that's the AVCA top 20 right there. So last week's Off the Block media poll was Long Beach State at 1, UCLA at 2, Grand Canyon and Hawaii tied for number 3. You got to remember, Hawaii pulled off that win over UC Irvine, and Grand Canyon, they still stayed put. They stayed put even though they lost to UCLA both times. UC Irvine stayed put at 5. Penn State moved up to 7, or they moved up to 6. BYU moved down to 7 after their loss to USC. Ball State moved up to 8. Pepperdine moved down to 9. And Loyola Chicago jumped back into the off-the-block men's volleyball national media poll, as Ohio State Stanford dropped out of the rankings. Ohio State still received votes, as well as Stanford. St. Francis also received some votes. USC, Lincoln Memorial, which wound up winning the Independent Volleyball Association conference tournament last weekend. That was big for the Rail Splitters. So unfortunately, it doesn't look like they'll go to the tournament. Got to throw that in there as well, but it is what it is. Still great, if you ask me. So now we go into this week's Off the Block media poll, and since it's Tuesday and I'm recording this, I will be able to go over this week's Off the Block media poll, and I won't have to save it to next week. That is awesome. So here's who I voted for. I voted Long Beach State 1, UCLA 2, UC Irvine 3, Grand Canyon 4, Hawaii 5, BYU 6, Penn State 7, Ball State 8, Loyola 9, Stanford 10. For this week's Off the Block media poll, UCLA is the new number 1. They had 4 more points over Long Beach State. They garnered 7 first-place votes out of the 12. Long Beach State had 5. Grand Canyon and UC Irvine tied for number 3, as, again, Grand Canyon, they took down Pepperdine. UC Irvine, they had a big win over Long Beach State. Hawaii moved down to 5 after that loss to UC San Diego. Penn State stayed put at 6, BYU 7, Ball State stayed put at 8. Loyola moved up to 9, and tied for number 10 is Ohio State and Stanford. That's rather interesting just because Stanford did pull off 2 good wins over USC, and then Ohio State is still alive and kicking in that MIVA tournament. But I guess some of the other voters see that Stanford deserves to be in the top 10, as well as Ohio State. I kind of went with Stanford just because I feel they've played such a tougher schedule. I think if you go back and look on their schedule outside of Concordia Irvine, I think they've played every ranked opponent they could find, whether it was during that span where that team was ranked or when that team is currently ranked. But Stanford, I think, is a little bit more deserving since they've played such a tougher schedule, and they don't have too many bad losses. I know they have the CSUN loss and the 2 UC Irvine losses, but that was when they didn't have Will Rotman. So that's that for this week's Off the Block Media Poll, as well as who I voted for in the Off the Block Media Poll. Again, we'll circle the wagons back to some NCAA men's volleyball later on the show when I go over the conference tournaments. But let's talk a little bit of some NAIA men's volleyball. So in NAIA men's volleyball, obviously the GSAC, the Golden State Athletic Conference, was on the line as basically the Masters University controlled their own fate. They played Arizona Christian as well as Ottawa of Arizona, while Vanguard, who was in second place, they had the honor of facing Menlo for hopefully a chance for them to, hopefully for their sake, a chance to win or at least clinch a share of the GSAC tournament, or GSAC number 1 seed, as well as the GSAC regular season title. But for Vanguard, they swept Menlo, and then they also, but to their dismay, the Masters College swept Arizona Christian, and then number 3 Ottawa of Arizona took on number 1 Masters College at the MacArthur Center in Santa Clara, and the Masters College swept Ottawa 25-22, 25-14, and 25-22. Ottawa gave it all that they could, but unfortunately, the Masters was just too good, and there's a reason why they're the number 1 team, and there was a reason why they knocked off Pepperdine. As the Masters, they didn't have anyone flashy. Their kill leaders had 6 kills, as Braden Van Groningen, Diego Perez, and Will Avera each had 6 kills. The Masters hit 470. They had 1/3 of the hitting errors that Ottawa had. And if you're doing that math correctly, the Masters College had 7 hitting errors, while Ottawa had 21, as Ottawa hit only 99 for the match. Ugh. What also did not work for Ottawa is that they got out-blocked as a team, as the Masters had 9.5 blocks to their 5. And the Masters also served tough. Ottawa was led by Ada Nestor, who had 10 kills. That's kind of where the buck stopped, as their next kill leader had 5 kills, which was Zio Meyer, their setter. That's kind of makes you wonder. Ottawa struggled when their setter, also Caden Salmon also had 5 kills, but Ottawa struggled when their setter is tied for second in kill leaders. But Zio Meyer, in the 1 year I covered him back in high school, he's a kind of a hybrid hitter. And yes, Zio Meyer is the brother of Zach Meyer and the brother to Zayna Meyer on Long Beach State. But all in all, the Masters College made history as they wound up winning the Golden State Athletic Conference, their first ever regular season GSAC title, which is pretty impressive. They're the number 1 seed of the GSAC tournament, as they're actually the tournament host, and they host Menlo. Vanguard and Ottawa will lock horns with one another in Santa Clara, and the winner will go to the NAIA tournament. But I imagine Vanguard, Ottawa, and the Masters College are all going to be in the NAIA tournament, which should be rather fun if you ask me. But time will tell. So that's that for some NAIA men's volleyball. So let's discuss a little 3C2A men's volleyball, aka junior college, or California Community College Athletic Association men's volleyball. So last week we had Orange Coast. If you all saw my Instagram live, you're awesome. So Orange Coast swept Golden West, and San Diego Mesa swept San Diego Miramar. If San Diego Miramar had beaten San Diego Mesa, Miramar and Mesa would have tied for first in the Pacific Coast Conference, but Miramar would have had the tiebreaker over them due to head-to-heads. So, thankfully for San Diego Mesa's sake, they did not lose. But San Diego Mesa clinched the automatic qualifier from that conference. Also, Long Beach City clinched their automatic qualifier from the Western State Conference as they swept L.A. Pierce. No surprise there. And Orange Coast, which is still undefeated, they clinched the Orange Empire Conference with the win over Golden West. They also swept Irvine Valley on the road, which I actually want to go to that matchup, but I thought UC Irvine Long Beach State was a little bit more enticing. And I kind of made the right decision, if you ask me. So I've been making the correct decision in terms of which volleyball matches I should attend. But going back to the 3C2A in that whole regard, the brackets have been released, as Yeah, this weekend is the second to last weekend. This weekend is actually the first round of the 3C2A men's volleyball playoffs, as OCC, or Orange Coast, no surprise there, they're the number 1 seed. They take on Santa Barbara City, which is the 8th seed. They actually pulled off a nice 3-set win over Moore Park this past Wednesday, and I thought that was a pretty good win since Santa Barbara hasn't had too many notable wins. I mean, they did clinch the automatic qualifier from the Western State Conference, so you have that right there, but that's a good momentum booster. But they're going to have to go from Santa Barbara all the way to Costa Mesa. And then the 2 seed was given to Golden West, as they will be hosting Moore Park, which I think is going to be a nice little matchup right there. Moore Park has not seen Golden West and vice versa, so I'll be interested to see what happens there. So the seeds actually got revised. So instead of San Diego Mesa being So what I was told is that San Diego Mesa was the 2 seed, but now San Diego Mesa is the 3 seed and Golden West is the 2 seed. So regardless, the matchups are still as followed. Golden West is the 2 seed, Moore Park is the 7 seed. San Diego Mesa, they got the 3rd seed. They'll play Irvine Valley, who's the 6th seed. Now, this is kind of an interesting regard right here. So in the email that I was given to, courtesy of one of the junior college men's volleyball coaches, it actually had Irvine Valley as the 7 seed as opposed to the 2 seed, but since they didn't want Golden West playing Irvine Valley in the first round, just because conference tournament teams, or teams from the same conference tournament, can't face each other outside of like the Western State Athletic Conference, or the Western State Conference, I guess they decided to put Golden West as the 2. So here's the criteria for this whole thing. So the criteria one is the highest total of match wins against playoff teams. Orange Coast obviously was undefeated. They had 9 wins against playoff teams. Now Golden West, Long Beach City, San Diego Mesa, and Santa Monica, they each had 5 wins against playoff teams. And then they decided to and then after that, Irvine Valley and Moore Park each had 3 wins against conference teams that basically were playoff bound. But here's the thing. The criteria, too, was head-to-head match record. And Moore Park actually beat Irvine Valley. So I'm a little surprised to see Moore Park as the 6th seed or as the 7th seed. But I guess they maybe someone made a mistake and they thought that Irvine Valley had 3, but maybe they had 4. But this is courtesy of the email from John Lendicho. So they had Moore Park as the 6th seed and IVC as the 7th seed, but they flipped that, so maybe they didn't want to see Golden West play IVC. And then also something to note is that IVC has the head-to-head over Long Beach City as well as San Diego Mesa, but they don't have the head-to-head against Santa Monica, which has 5 wins against playoff teams. This email is very lengthy. It's pretty lengthy if you ask me. But the championship handbook has the wording, and I quote, 2 conference teams should not play against each other in the first round. But Long Beach City and Santa Monica are the 4 and 5 seed. However, because the switch that was made with Moore Park and Irvine Valley, the handbook states that the original seeding is then used, which means Golden West and Irvine Valley being from the same conference, they would need to switch. So that's why IVC is 6 instead of 7. So it's a very confusing process, and this really makes me wonder, why can't we just have one automatic qualifier? One automatic qualifier from each conference, and then you have 5 at-larges dependent on strength of schedule, RPI, head-to-head, and all that sort of jazz. This is very confusing. And also, something that I have a bit of a qualm of is that the Western State Conference gets 4 automatic qualifiers. 4. That's half the tournament field, because it's an 18 field. The Orange Empire Conference only gets 1. And then the Pacific Coast Conference only gets 1. And then there's only 2 at-larges, which Golden West and IVC both occupied. Which means poor San Diego Miramar, being the first one out, they unfortunately are left out of the big dance. Now, if you had the 1 automatic qualifier from each conference, and then you have 5 at-larges, you obviously are putting in Golden West, Irvine Valley, Santa Monica, Moore Park, and then you have to decide between San Diego Miramar and Santa Barbara. But I think Santa Barbara would still get in because they probably have more playoff wins against playoff teams because Santa Barbara had 2. Let's look at Miramar as Miramar. It's unfortunate that they got left out. I feel would they still have a chance against OCC? Maybe they would have. Maybe they wouldn't have. I don't know. I feel maybe they would have given them a big challenge at the end. But Miramar has a win over Santa Barbara, a loss to Santa Monica, a loss to Orange Coast, a loss to Golden West, a loss to Irvine Valley, a loss to San Diego Mesa, a win against San Diego Mesa, and then a loss to San Diego Mesa. So San Diego Miramar has 2 wins against playoff teams, and they would have had the tiebreaker over Santa Barbara. So if it came down to those 2, Santa Barbara and Miramar would have gotten in. But because the Western State Conference has 4 automatic qualifiers and the Pacific Coast only has 1, and the at-larges were taken by IVC and Golden West, both having more wins against playoff-bound teams, Miramar, unfortunately, has to be on the outside looking in. It's a flawed process, I get it, but here is something that I actually saw in that email. Look, a number of you have commented to me that the playoff section format needs tweaking, and it does. And he says, I myself found inequity in grinding through the seating above. You should know because of the work that he and his buddy and I did, they're trying to switch us to a single sport conference next season. So it says a single sport conference, meaning it's going to be one gigantic conference. Oh, it's good, but how's that going to work? Is every match going to be a conference match? I get it. Is every team going to have to play every team? Because that's going to be a lot of conference matches. Like, how's that going to work? There's 16 teams, and does that mean every team is going to be playing each other one time? Or will there be some wiggle room to have 2 conference matches? It's so weird. That last part of the email really just blew my mind. I mean, OCC, they played 17 matches. Santa Monica played 20. San Diego Mesa played 23. So that means you're going to have to, I'm guessing everyone would play one conference match against everybody, whether it's the worst team or the best team. So we need to grow the game of we need to grow 3C2A men's volleyball. I swear, my dudes. But unfortunately, I feel bad for San Diego Miramar, but you could feel bad for San Diego Miramar, but honestly, you kind of got to get angry. You shouldn't really be angry, because if they had just taken care of business against San Diego Mesa, they would be in. But yeah, but there you go. That's my little rant right there. Don't feel bad don't be mad at San Diego Mesa because they did their job. Be mad at the fact that the system is a little flawed, and be mad at the fact that San Diego Miramar sadly could not take care of business. All right, that is that. So to recap the 3C2A Men's Volleyball State Championship, OCC is the 1 seed. They'll host Santa Barbara City, the 8 seed. Long Beach City is the 4 seed. They'll host Santa Monica, which is the 5 seed. San Diego Mesa is the 3 seed. They will host Irvine Valley as the 6 seed. And then Golden West is the 2 seed. They will host Moore Park as the 7 seed. There you have it right there. So, as much as I really don't want to make a prediction, I actually am going to go against making a prediction just because I feel it's so tempting to pick Orange Coast to win it all. However, you kind of have to wonder. The last time a team went undefeated and won the 3C2A state championship was 2004, if not maybe 2005, where LA Pierce did so. But it's so tempting to pick Orange Coast to win it all. I definitely think they're having an amazing season. It's just all about them staying healthy and still playing their best volleyball. I mean, they've had their ups and downs against teams. They had a little bit of a scare against Long Beach City. Irvine Valley, they had to sweat one out and win in 5 as well. They had to sweat one out against Golden West the first go-around and against Santa Monica on the road. I will also just mention that Orange Coast College is also hosting the semifinals and finals of the 3C2A men's volleyball tournament. So you have that right there as well. But I guess if I had to predict first round who advances to the Final Four, I'd say Orange Coast beats Santa Barbara. As much as I don't want to give Santa Barbara the boot already, I just think Orange Coast is playing their best volleyball. And heck, the scary thing about OCC is that some of their best players might not have the biggest nights, but they have other players to step up. Like, for example, Miles Henderson only had 5 kills against Golden West last Wednesday. But Cam Vakilian and Cole Hauser both stepped up to aid him. And the middles also stepped up as well, as Andrew Robbins stepped up in the middle. I forget the other middle from the other middle, as I actually do have my game notes or my little stat sheet. Jacob Charette, he stepped up for OCC as well. But yeah, OCC has just a lot of firepower, and it's tough to pick against them. Now for Santa Monica, Long Beach City. All right, this is kind of a tough one, but in reality, it's not. Long Beach City, if they're healthy, they'll win this one fairly easily. I know Santa Monica has given Long Beach City a run for their money in the 2 meetings that they had in conference, but I just think Long Beach City is playing good volleyball, and them having the home court is really going to go a long way. Now, Santa Monica does have 3 players on the watch list of the 2-year Player of the Year, courtesy of the AVCA. However, Long Beach City, I think, is playing better volleyball than they did early on. Remember, they lost their first 4 matches against San Diego Mesa, Irvine Valley, and Orange Coast twice. They also took a loss to Golden West early on. But after that, they kind of went on a little bit of a hot streak, only to get cooled off by injuries and by Moore Park. So I think for Long Beach City, they should beat Santa Monica. I won't be surprised if that one goes 5. Then we have San Diego Mesa, Irvine Valley. So Irvine Valley, I think, is such an underrated team. I feel they'll have a much better chance to win this one, but I think San Diego Mesa advances. I would not be surprised if IVC pushed San Diego Mesa to 5. I think IVC has the talent. They have Damon Koyman, they have Zach McIntyre, Grant Dvorak is such a fantastic setter as well as an opposite. Drake Goring and Giovanni Flowers do great in the middle. So all in all, for IVC, I think that they're a good team, but they're just so inconsistent. I know San Diego Mesa doesn't have wins. They don't have like a top 2 win, as they lost to Golden West, and they also lost twice to OCC, and they also did have the loss to Miramar. But I think San Diego Mesa is just a little bit more physical than IVC is. But don't be surprised if IVC does manage to make San Diego Mesa sweat in that match. And then you have Moore Park, Golden West. All right, Moore Park, if you remember last year, Moore Park was the 7 seed, and they actually knocked off the number 2 seed, Irvine Valley. Now, Moore Park had a better matchup regarding their opponent in IVC. This time they're playing Golden West, and Golden West bounced back nicely after their loss to OCC. They managed to take down Santiago Canyon, which obviously was a nice little sweep ski right there. But I gotta go with Golden West. I think it's a safe pick right there. I feel Moore Park is scrappy, but against Golden West, I just think that Golden West is such a whole different team from last year. Because if you compare this year's team to last year's team, it's like comparing apples to oranges. Like, this year's Golden West team has a whole different vibe to him. Curtis Harper is a fantastic player. He leads the state in kills per set with 4.43. They also got Ezra Vlad in the middle. I just think that Golden West has a lot more firepower, and Nick Amato, their head coach, who is a former OCC Pirate and a former Long Beach State men's volleyball player, he also does great work. He's really had his boys grinding, and even though he can be a little harsh on them, he knows that he wants his boys to do their best, and he has their boys all in for this year. All right, but that's that for the 3C2A men's volleyball. I know that was a little bit lengthy than normal, but honestly, I needed to explain the criteria a little bit better because my predictions were absolutely dog water. I think I only got 2 out of the 8 predictions correct, and that was the 1 and 8 seed. And then the 2... Well, no, I actually got the Golden West pick right, and then I got the Golden West pick right. I got the Long Beach... Oh, no, I didn't. I thought Long Beach was going to be on the road, so I got the Golden West pick right. Did I get the San Diego Mesa pick right? Yeah, I did. I said San Diego Mesa was going to be the 3. I thought IVC was going to be the 4 based off of the current rankings, but little did I know this whole criteria is a whole different animal. So, yeah, I got 4 out of the correct 8 picks, as I missed the 4 seed, that's Long Beach City. I missed the 5 seed, that is Santa Monica. I missed the 6 seed, that is... I missed the 6th seed, which is Irvine Valley, and then the 7th seed I got right too. So I got seeds 1, 2, 3 correct, and then and then 7 and 8 correct. So I got 5 out of 8 right. So I thought I did a whole lot worse than normal, but they revised the whole thing and they gave sympathy to me. But I still passed with about 60-ish%. But that's still a bad grade. So I'm not the predictor that I thought I would be. I'm not Vinny Lopes, but I digress. All right, but that's that for some 3C2A men's volleyball. Jumping over to some NCAA beach volleyball. All right, so we had a busy week last week, as it all started last Tuesday. Before I continue, I have to go over last week's AVCA National Collegiate Beach Volleyball rankings. So UCLA is back to being, or is still number 1. USC jumped to 2, as I predicted. Stanford to 3. Florida State 4. TCU 5. Cal Poly 6. Long Beach State 7. Cal 8. LSU 9. LMU 10. Washington 11. Hawaii 12. Arizona State 13. FIU 14, Georgia State 15, Stetson 16, Arizona 17, Florida Atlantic 18, Grand Canyon 19, and Texas A&M Corpus Christi 20. So now we can go over the matches from Week 8. So Tuesday we had UCLA sweeping Long Beach State 5-0, and also last week was the Center of Effort Challenge at Cal Poly, which I think was definitely a well-run event. But let's go over some of the other non-Center of Effort Challenge matches. As Stanford took down Arizona 5-0. Washington edged Georgia State 3-2. That was on Friday. Then Saturday, we had Georgia State getting a little bit of revenge against Washington, winning 3-2. Hawaii took down Grand Canyon 3-2. That is not as close as the final score indicates, as Hawaii wound up clinching the duel after they won their third flight, or third match. Unranked Tulane took down number 18 FAU 3-2, and then South Carolina took down number 16 Stetson 3-2. And then on Sunday, FIU took down Stetson 3-1. FIU also took down FAU 3-1. And then Hawaii, celebrating its senior night, took down Grand Canyon for the second straight night, winning that matchup 4-1. Now for the Center of Effort Challenge. So the Center of Effort Challenge got started on Friday with USC taking down Pepperdine 4-1. UCLA outlasted LMU 3-2. TCU edged out Long Beach State 3-2. Oh, that's such a tough loss for the Beach. But that's still, the Beach are still having such a great season. Florida State edged Cal Poly 3-2. USC swept Long Beach State 5-0. UCLA outlasted Florida State 3-2. TCU swept Pepperdine 5-0. And then Cal Poly took down LMU 4-1. So that was the first matchups. Then we had on Saturday, we had USC sweeping TCU 5-0. That's a pretty good win. It seems like the Trojans, or the Women of Troy, have the number of TCU in beach volleyball. And then we had UCLA outlasting host Cal Poly 3-2. So many 3-2 wins for UCLA. but they're still pulling out the wins. And then Long Beach State swept Pepperdine, their longtime rival, 5-0. And then LMU, they stunned Florida State 4-1, as the pool with Florida State, Cal Poly, UCLA, and LMU, that was actually rather wild. Outside of UCLA just sweeping everybody or beating everybody. So the 7th place match was Florida State taking on Pepperdine, as the Noles took that one 4-1, placing 7th in the Center of Effort tournament or Center of Effort challenge. That's kind of a modest 7th place because Florida State actually won one pool play match, but unfortunately they lost on tiebreaker, as they lost the 5th place, 3rd place, and 1st place tiebreaker based on like a tiebreaker and whatnot. And then the 5th place match, Long Beach State outlasted LMU 3-2. Solid finish for Long Beach State. They went 2-2, as the first part of the tournament was a little tough for them, taking on the likes of TCU and SC, where they almost beat TCU, but they just could not pull out the win. And then in the 3rd place match, you had Cal Poly defeating TCU 4-1. That's a huge win for Cal Poly, and I imagine the Mustangs are going to be in the top 5. There's no way TCU remains that top 5 after they almost lost to Long Beach State, and they just then lost to Cal Poly. And then the 1st place match, that featured UCLA versus USC, and UCLA was able to edge out USC in thrilling fashion, winning 3-2, winning the Center of Effort challenge. So great job to the Lady Bruins on getting that win. Now, this kind of begs the question for USC. Is it just tough luck in the regular season, or is UCLA the real deal? I feel UCLA is definitely the real deal, but USC plays its best volleyball when it comes to NCAA tournament time, or maybe the Pac-12 tournament. So, all in all for USC, this is a tough loss for them. No, we don't need to call Will Ferrell to give them a harking on, but it is what it is. So, the beach volleyball matches to watch for in Week 9. Starting on Thursday, we have LMU and UCLA, UCLA and USC, Arizona State and Arizona, and LMU and USC. So, USC and UCLA get to face each other yet again. I think this is the 3rd meeting between the Trojans and the Bruins, as UCLA has beaten USC the past 3 out of 4 times. After that early season loss in Hawaii, I think UCLA is a machine this season, and they're playing really well. It's just all about staying consistent up until the NCAA tournament, and they have to basically play their best volleyball in said NCAA tournament. And then Friday, we have Grand Canyon versus Stanford, Cal versus Washington, Washington versus Stanford, and Cal versus Grand Canyon. Then Saturday, we have Washington versus Cal, round 2, Grand Canyon versus Washington, LSU versus Georgia State. That's round 2 between the Tigers and the Panthers, as Georgia State wound up winning the first meeting. That's elsewhere, though, outside of Grand Canyon, Washington, Cal territory. You also had Cal versus Stanford. That's going to be a great matchup. And then Arizona versus LMU. So there you have it right there. And that's kind of your notable Week 9 matches to watch for. So next week is actually the Big West Conference Beach Volleyball Tournament. And I'm hoping to make it to that tournament. I'd really love to. It's It's next Thursday and Friday. So as of this recording, this is being recorded on Tuesday. It's not this Thursday and Friday, but it's next Thursday and Friday. Now, I obviously can't make I can't make the first day, but making it to the second day, that's in the cards, just because I don't think I have anything going on Friday. But we'll see. All right, but that's that for some NCAA beach volleyball. Well, let's discuss a little high school boys volleyball after the commercial break. So we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll discuss some high school boys volleyball. We'll discuss some Pro Volleyball Federation. And then, if time permits, we might discuss a little bit of NCAA Division III men's volleyball and their tournament. But then we also have my predictions for the NCAA or National Collegiate Men's Volleyball Conference tournaments, the rest of them. So keep it locked here. You are listening to Set Point here on IA Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hello, sports fans. It's me, your boy Larry B, and I want to walk you through the world of sports. No, Not just the mainstream major TV deal type sports, although those are important too. But let me be your guide for your journey of all sports, from college to the pros, the minors, and everything in between. Each week, we are talking sports galore with true diehards just like you from a hardcore fan's perspective that's sure to quench your thirst around leagues you may know all too well and some you may even discover here. That's right, sports fans. If you love sports of all kinds, enjoy hearing amazing sports stories, and respect all sports because you know how difficult any of them can be to play or compete in, then this is your show. Join me, your boy Larry B, on the defining moment each week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports, and let the sports come to you.
Sports fans, do you like teams that are tough, cities that are tougher, and fan bases that are passionate about their teams? How about teams that are historic and stadiums that are iconic? Then you belong in Chicago, and you need to check out Chi-Town Weekly. Join me, Adam Kernan, every week as we keep up with all things Chicago sports. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox. We'll cover them all, plus more. The Windy City is always buzzing, and we'll keep you up on all the big games and major stories. So tune in to Chi-Town Weekly every week right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hello, ladies and sinners. Hello, sports fans around the world. Hello, IE Sports family. This is Cale Henderson, the host of IE Vegas, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio. If you folks are interested in sports in the Vegas area, if you're wanting to have a blast for 1 hour, every Tuesday night from 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, this is a show built for the Vegas sports fans, where we feature the Las Vegas Raiders, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, the Las Vegas Aces, and the University of Las Vegas, Nevada Rebels. Hopefully, fingers crossed, MLB team coming soon. Either way, if you folks are looking to have a blast for 1 hour each and every week, tune in Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you folks are interested in Vegas sports news, go to our Twitter, at SinCities_IESR, and you can speak with me, the host, Cale Henderson, at Cale_Henderson on Twitter. At any time, be happy to reply. Always want to reach out to our fans. Again, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Back with segment number 2 of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Definitely check out all of our amazing shows, especially Sin City with Cale Henderson. That will be going on at 7 p.m. Pacific time. But let's get on back into the volleyball action. So let's discuss a little bit of high school volleyball. So I've covered quite a bit of high school volleyball in my area. So we have to take it back to last Tuesday. So the Surf League, which consists of Newport Harbor, Corona Del Mar, Edison, and Huntington Beach. That's probably one of the more premier leagues that I have seen in a while. So Edison, being the strong team that they are, they managed to upset Huntington Beach last Tuesday on their home court in 5. The Chargers had 5 different players with 10 or more kills. We talk about how UCLA is so balanced, or in some of these other teams are balanced. Edison might have one of the more balanced rosters that I've seen. Now, one thing that kind of hinders Edison is their missed serves. They missed a lot of serves, and they could have won a little bit more comfortably in some of these sets. If not, like set 2, they lost by 2, 25-23, where they missed 3 serves. Set 3, they actually won 25-23, but they missed 6 serves. Huntington Beach didn't even miss a serve until set number 4, where they missed 2 serves. And they missed 3 on the night altogether. Yet Edison wound up still winning the match. They were led by Owen Banner's 18 kills. They also got 16 kills from Loyola Chicago-bound Ben Winokur. They also got 15 kills from CJ Addison. I definitely think Huntington Beach did not do the greatest job of slowing down the middle, and that is so key right there. I think slowing down the middle is so big for any opponent on any team at any level, as Huntington Beach was led by Jake Pizzanti, who had 14 kills. Now, you still got to remember, Huntington Beach is not at full strength, as Bennett Tchaikovsky is still out for quite a bit with a knee injury. They're hoping they can get him back by the time the playoffs roll around, which would be next week, but it's still up in the air. They also got 12 kills from Aiden Dubno, and they also got 12 kills from Ben Arguello, their opposite. So, yeah, that was a tough one for Huntington Beach, but they actually made up for it 2 days after. So they actually hosted Newport Harbor on their senior night. And Newport Harbor, as we know, they're the reigning Max Preps national champions. They are the reigning back-to-back CIF Southern Section champions. But little did everyone know, Newport Harbor did not have their star player, Riggs Guy, who was bound for UC Santa Barbara, as Riggs was actually out due to food poisoning. And that's going to come into play a little bit later. So the first 2 sets, Newport Harbor wound up winning 25-20 and 25-22. Neither team, I guess both teams decided not to register aces or were against registering service aces. And then in set 3, this was kind of the turning point right here. Huntington Beach obviously won that set, but Craig Pizzanti, a former set point guest, he actually put Logan Hutnick from the middle blocker position to the left side. And that was so big right there, just because Huntington Beach just lacks the left side presence, and Aiden Dubno cannot carry the pins on the left and right side. But Huntington Beach wound up winning the third set 25-14. Huntington Beach was actually up by as many as 7 in the 4th set, but then Newport Harbor was chipping away at that lead. Obviously, not having Riggs Guy hurt them, but Jack Berry stepped up in the middle. Jack Vonderay also stepped up, as he had to play both left and right side for a bit. Wyatt Nichols, who was one of their not so well known players, he also stepped up in the absence of Riggs Guy. Newport Harbor actually had match point at 24-23, but Huntington Beach, they scored the last 3 points as they wound up taking the 4th set 26-24. Then the 5th set, Newport Harbor went out to an 8-4 lead. Huntington Beach got within 1 at 9-8, but then Newport Harbor eventually led 12-8. They eventually led 13-8, and I'm thinking to myself, all right, it looks like Newport Harbor might have this one in the bag. But then Huntington Beach rounded off 4 straight points, got the lead down to 1. Huntington Beach, unfortunately, gave up the next point, a kill in the middle, as it was match point for Newport Harbor. Newport Harbor had 2 opportunities to, well, they had 3 if you count the previous set, but they had 2 opportunities in set 5 to close it out. Next point, Huntington Beach got a kill in the middle. I must say, Huntington Beach really did well in terms of getting kills in the middle. And then, this was such an obvious play, looking back on it. Newport Harbor decided to go middle, but unfortunately Jack Berry was not in due to the rotation that Newport Harbor was in. So they fed the ball to Charlie Harrington, who had a solid night for the Sailors, as he had 9 kills, but he got blocked, and this was so obvious. And Huntington Beach read that play really well, because they knew Newport Harbor wanted to go swiftly in the middle, but then they timed the block well, and they tied it up at 14-14. Huntington Beach's next kill attempt went out, as it was 15 15-14. And then Wyatt Nichols, I will say this about Wyatt Nichols, he has a very strong serve. And Newport Harbor had the opportunity, but unfortunately they weren't ultimately ready for Huntington Beach to basically pass that ball back over to the Sailors side. And then Newport Harbor unfortunately passed the ball over to the Huntington Beach side. Jake Bazzanti put away the kill, and it was eventually tied up at 15-15. Newport Harbor eventually scored on the next point, and then on the next serve, Walker Vasic served, and then Jake, it was not as strong of a serve as the previous one, as Jake Bazzanti being his primary setter position, he had a dump kill, which eventually tied the set at 16-16. Then the next point, Huntington Beach wound up winning it. I think Colin Choi had that kill for Huntington Beach, and it was eventually match point for the Oilers. And then they won the match off a walk-off block, and they knew where the ball was going. They knew that the ball was going to Jack Vonderay, because he was their hot hitter that match. But Logan Hutnick timed that block well, and eventually Huntington Beach wound up winning the fifth set 18-16. So they only needed one match point, and they dodged 5 match points altogether in that match. As by my count, Huntington Beach was led by Aiden Dubno, who had 17 kills. Jake Pizzanti had 5 kills. Nick Gagne had 13 kills. Logan Hutnick had 12 kills. All in all, Huntington Beach deserved to win that one. There's no doubt about it. Newport Harbor, they had 5 different players with 8 or more kills, as Jack Vonderay had 18 kills. Jack Berry had 13 kills. But that's kind of what. But I will say that's kind of an uncharacteristic on Newport Harbor's part. I feel that they have the experience in terms of winning 5-set matches, and with Huntington, I get it. Huntington Beach was coming off of a 5-set loss, but I feel that really hurt Newport Harbor, and that is going to come into play a little bit later. Eventually, Newport Harbor played in the Santa Barbara Tournament of Champions, or the Karch Karaai Santa Barbara Tournament of Champions. They took down Santa Ynez and Burroughs, and then they took down the host team, Santa Barbara, in 4 sets. The matches were best 3 out of 5 and not 2 out of 3. And then Mira Costa, the number 2 seed of that tournament, they wound up winning their way through the tournament. They took down Marist of Chicago in 4 sets in the semifinals. And then they eventually took down Newport Harbor, who still did not have Riggs Guy, in 4 sets in the Santa Barbara Tournament of Champions final. So it's another big tournament win for Mira Costa, as that's going to come into play a little bit later. But as for the last match to recap, yesterday, let's go over the CIF Southern Section ranking. So currently, Mira Costa, with that win over Newport Harbor, they move up to 3. Newport Harbor's lost to Huntington Beach and Mira Costa. They actually dropped down to 6. Edison moved up to 5, and then Huntington Beach stayed put at 5 because of their split. Now, I will say, I think Newport Harbor being 6 is a little harsh. I don't understand why, just because they've beaten Edison twice. And as of this recording, they have not lost to Edison. Maybe that changes tomorrow when they play Edison, but I still think Newport Harbor should, at worst, be 5 and not 6. I think Newport Harbor will be the 4 seed. I'm going to call it right now. Newport Harbor's the 4 seed, Mira Costa's the 3 seed, Corona Del Mar is the 2 seed, and Loyola is the 1 seed. The 5 seed will be Huntington, 6 seed will be Edison, 7 seed Mater Dei, and then to close off Division 1, it'll be Redondo Union. Redondo Union is currently 8th, and I think they're kind of deserving of the 8th spot in the CIF Southern Section Division 1 bracket. But I will just also say that you never know with Redondo Union, because they don't have too many bad losses. Tesoro, on the other hand, kind of does, and they're number 9. So it's going to boil down to what happens in this week, which is the last week of the high school boys volleyball regular season. But yesterday, I covered a big-time matchup. I covered Corona Del Mar taking on Edison at Edison. So the first set, Edison took that one 25-20. Corona Del Mar had 7 kills, which 6 of them were from Sterling Foley. And then in the second set, the Sea Kings were able to turn on the heat. They took that second set 25-13. Sterling Foley really got it going, as he had 10 kills up to that point. But players like Everett Welton, Brady Gant, they were also stepping up. I will also just say that CDM was also serving very tough. They had 3 aces. They missed 5 serves, but at least they were getting aces. And then in the third set, Edison took that one 25-17. Massive turnaround as they were serving tough even though they missed 4 serves. They had 2 aces. And then the fourth set, okay, this was the fourth set where I think Edison kind of lost their edge. Edison had 9 service errors. I know Corona Del Mar had 4 service errors of their own by my count, but Edison had 9. You just can't have 9 service errors and expect to beat a team like Corona Del Mar, who is number 2 in the CIF Southern Section rankings, where Edison is number 4. But the Sea Kings took set 4, 25-20, and then the fifth set was just bananas. Edison led 10-9, and then Corona Del Mar eventually built a 12-11 lead, and then they actually had match point at 14-12, 14-12 and 14-13, 2 back-to-back kills from Edison, tied it up, but on the next serve, Edison misses it into the net. It misses into the net, and the previous serve actually just grazed the tape. And I was thinking, oh my god, don't lose off of a missed serve. But they didn't. Eventually, Edison wound up losing off a walk-off block from Corona Del Mar as they took CDM took the fifth set 17-15, as the Sea Kings actually clinched a share of the Surf League title, as Sterling Foley, I had him down for 24 kills. Everett Welton also had 11 kills. Check out that interview, as I actually asked a unique question regarding Sterling Foley and how he is comparable to a player in terms of who he admires. Edison was led by Owen Banner, who had 16 kills. Noah Nelson had 17 kills. Noah Nelson had 16 kills. Owen Banner had 17 kills. But Corona Del Mar did a good job of slowing down the middle, as Edison only had 11 kills in the middle. And that's where Corona Del Mar really shines. That they may not have the tallest and most athletic players, and they may not have the best middles, but honestly, slowing down the middles like Edison's, that goes a long way, as Edison had 2 carry the 3 minus 4. They had 13 kills in the middle, which in a 5-set match, that's less than 3%. So Corona Del Mar really knows how to clog the middle, and Edison has some really tall middles. CJ Addison and Ben Winokur are some tall boys right there. But I give a lot of credit to Corona Del Mar. They really stopped the middle very effectively. And it's a bummer for Edison, because I feel that they definitely could have won that one, but unfortunately they just fell short, and this is going to be one of those wins where that's going to come back to haunt them. But Corona Del Mar deserves a lot of credit on them winning. They can actually clinch the outright Surf League title and the number 2 seed of the CIF Southern Section Division 1 bracket if they beat Huntington Beach tomorrow. As of this recording, this is being recorded on Tuesday. Newport Harbor plays Edison that same day. I'm going to be at that one PA announcing, so there you have it right there. But Corona Del Mar controls its destiny. Newport Harbor can only hope for Mira Costa to collapse and to have a bad loss sometime this week, and then they would have to win that matchup against Edison. But even so, that's not even going to guarantee them the number 4 seed, or them getting out of the 4 seed. Because the reason why being the 4 seed is bad is because they're on the path of Loyola, and Loyola is a very good team. There's a reason why Loyola is probably ranked number 1 nationally, let alone in the Southern Section rankings. But Loyola is straight up filthy. They have a good setter in Parker Schloss. They have the number 1 player in the nation in the class of 2024 in Sean Kelly, who's committed to UCLA. So for Loyola, they're a tough out. And with them having home court advantage until they reach the final, they're just that talented. So I definitely think you have to avoid Loyola all the way up until you reach the final, if you reach the final. But Corona Del Mar is also a tough out. Like, you can't really stop Sterling Foley all that much. You can only hope that he slows down, because once he's in sync with his setter, Ryan Gant, who's committed to Stanford, you're basically praying that he does not have the biggest and best night of his life. But that's going to do it for some high school boys volleyball talk. Don't want to go too much in depth, as we have some Pro Volleyball Federation to discuss. So unfortunately, it's kind of going to be a little synopsis, just because sadly, I got to talk some NCAA men's volleyball, but the season is winding down, so last Monday I didn't really get a chance to talk about this, but the Atlanta Vibe swept the Vegas Thrill. Then last Wednesday, the Vibe headed down to Viejas Arena to take on the San Diego Mojo. They swept them. Thursday, the Grand Rapids Rise swept the Orlando Valkyries. Last Friday, the San Diego Mojo outlasted the Columbus Fury in Nationwide Arena 3-2. No, that was the next match. But that's a good win for the Mojo, bouncing back after they lost to the Vibe. And then Saturday was a doubleheader. The Grand Rapids Rise avenged their reverse sweep as they wound up taking down the Thrill 3-2, which I think was pretty good. And believe it or not, the Rise almost got reverse swept again, but they were able to come up big in that fifth set. And then the second part of the doubleheader, the Atlanta Vibe took down the Omaha Supernovas in 4 sets, which I think was very impressive. That was at Gas South Arena, and unless my math is off, the Vibe have beaten the Supernovas. I think it's 3 times out of 4. If not, then they split. But regardless, it's a huge win for the Vibe just because, well, that keeps them in first place. And then Sunday, this was a good matchup. I got to see little bits and pieces of this matchup, but the Mojo were able to outlast the Orlando Valkyries, and the Valkyries in that 5th set, yeah, the match went 5. The Valkyries had, I think, 2 or 3 match points, but the Mojo were able to score the last 3 points after trailing 15-16, and they wound up winning that 5th set 18-16, which was so darn impressive. The San Diego Mojo are really coming alive, and honestly, it shows in the rankings. And that is such a crucial win just because those two were pretty much caboosed with one another in terms of the standings, as currently right now, the Mojo are actually 4th in the standings. The Atlanta Vibe are 15-4. More importantly, the Atlanta Vibe are the first team to clinch a spot in the playoffs. So it's not a matter of if the Atlanta Vibe are going to be in the playoffs. It's a matter of what their seeding is going to be and who they're going to play in the playoffs. The Omaha Supernovas are still 11-6. They're probably going to lock up the 2 seed unless the Vibe kind of fall apart, but time will tell. The Grand Rapids Rise are 3rd, they're 8-8. San Diego Mojo are 7-8. Orlando Valkyries are 5th, they're 7-10. The Columbus Fury are 5-10, they're 6th. And then bringing up the rear is the Vegas Thrill, which is 5-12. But the San Diego Mojo, they're playing so much better, and I thought, and this is no disrespect to them, I thought it was going to be a little bit of a tougher year just because they were struggling. They were on the struggle bus. But now they are kicking butt and taking names as they won, 3 or 4 out of their last 4 or 5? Either way, it's been rather impressive if you ask me. And ever since that Omaha Supernovas win, they've basically been kicking butt and taking names, as other than the Atlanta Vibe loss, they haven't lost to anyone else as of this point. In terms of their winning streak, but and I digress in that regard. But something I got to note, I actually said that the Vegas Thrill released Hannah Maddox last week. That is actually not true. They actually released Hannah Pukas. It's very frustrating, and I apologize to those that heard that last week, but I kind of put in the description that Hannah Pukas was released by the Vegas Thrill, not Hannah Maddox. Hannah Maddox is legit, and if you've seen her story, she is just a straight-up baller. But looking at the Pro Volleyball Federation match week for this week, in week 13, the Atlanta Vibe hosts the Grand Rapids Rise tonight, as of this recording, at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Pacific. Well, this is a big match for the Rise just because San Diego is right on their coattails, and the Vibe still want to solidify first place because they know the Supernovas can get hot at any point, and they could eventually get caught at any moment in terms of the standings. So I got the Atlanta Vibe winning that one. On Wednesday, we have the Columbus Fury heading down to Lee's Family Forum. Ooh, so I guess it's a new venue because Dollar Loan Center is being used, but I digress. But the Vegas Thrill are hosting the Columbus Fury, and poor Jen B, she says the Columbus Fury is falling apart. So, yeah, I feel bad for the Fury, too. Also, gotta give a shout out to the chat room. Ralph Calise popped into the chat room. Patty Bax just recently popped into the chat room. She's working. And Jen B is also in the chat room. She says the Fury is falling apart. Well, I think the Fury can win this one. If Reagan Cooper can have her monster game as well as Asia O'Neal, they can definitely beat the Vegas Thrill. But I will say, it can't get much... I'm hoping for their sake it can't get much worse than that. Then Thursday, we have the Grand Rapids Rise hosting the Orlando Valkyries. This is a crucial matchup just because the Rise are barely ahead of the San Diego Mojo and the Orlando Valkyries. The Valkyries really need to step it up. They need all their players to step up because this matchup could be the matchup that could, hence the word could, decide on if they make the playoffs or they miss the playoffs. It could be one of those matches where they'd love to have back and they'd love to basically say, we want to have this match back because we missed the playoffs by one game. And then Friday we have the Atlanta Vibe heading down to Nationwide Arena to take on the Columbus Fury. I want to give the Fury a chance with this one, but I will just say I think the Vibe are going to win this one. And this is no knock on the Fury. On paper, they have such a good team. I'm a moron. I forgot Asia O'Neal's with the US U21 team. I am completely dumb. And see, this is what happens when I have quick synopsi of the PVF. So thank you, Jen B. Asia O'Neal is with the US U21 team, and they actually have a nice little replacement for her as they just signed Kendall Kipp, and she is a beast. Kendall Kipp in her debut against the Mojo, she had 20 kills, and that's in her first match in the Pro Volleyball Federation. And that is such a huge addition. And yeah, Jen B just mentions Kendall Kipp in the chat. Yeah, Kendall Kipp, I have covered her back in her high school volleyball days. And this is no knock against the Columbus Fury, but she should be on that U21 team. How does she get left off? Anyway, but Kendall Kipp is 6'6". She plays opposite. She can also play outside too. She has a wicked float jump serve, and honestly, she's basically fantastique. But yeah, I totally forgot about Asia O'Neal not being on the Columbus Fury. So that, yeah, it does mean that the Fury are going to have to fill the void at middle. But Kendall Kipp Jen B says she's so tall. Oh, I agree. She kept growing and growing her high school year, I'm like, wait, how'd you get so tall? Yeah, she's one of the funny, interesting thing is that she's actually the youngest of her family. I think she has two sisters who also played volleyball, and I think she has an older brother. I'm not sure. If not, I can confirm that she has the two sisters. But yeah, Kendall Kipp is so freakishly tall, and she's just so powerful. And the best part about her is that she does everything with a smile. But now that she's kind of got her feet wet, I think the Fury, she could, hence the word could, lead the Fury to a furious comeback in terms of making the playoffs. But we'll see. But all in all, I think that's still a good addition. And if they can keep her long-term, the Fury are set. Because with Reagan Cooper, man, and more Megan Courtney Lush, unless she's with USA Volleyball as well, man, that's so good. So that's Friday's matchup. Now Saturday there is a doubleheader, starting with the San Diego Mojo versus the Omaha Supernovas at CHI Health Center. Look, as good as the Mojo are, the Supernovas are going to remember the last time they played them, the Mojo beat the Supernovas in Viejas Arena. That being said, now that it's at CHI Health Center, going to be a whole little bit more hostile environment. So I don't want to diss the San Diego Mojo, but I think the Supernovas are going to win this one. And then also on Saturday, we have the Vegas Thrill at Lee's Family Forum hosting the Grand Rapids Rise. Now, again, this is such a crucial matchup for the Rise, because if they lose this one, their chances of avoiding the Vibe could be slimmer. But honestly, I think the Thrill I don't see them winning this matchup just because Molly McCage is still on IR. And speaking of IR, NAIA Read of the Omaha Supernovas is also on IR, which is just sucky. But the Rise, I think they should win this matchup. Shannon Scully is kind of a good right-hand player for Claire Chaussee. So I have the Rise winning that one. And then also on Sunday to close out the week, we have the Atlanta Vibe heading down to Orlando to take on the Orlando Valkyries in Edition Financial Arena. That's an 11 a.m. start time, and that's going to be on CBS Sports Network. Also going to be on the same day that the NCAA Men's Volleyball Selection Show is. But I have the Vibe winning this one, but don't count out the Valkyries. They just signed Skylar Fields. Well, they signed her 2 weeks ago, and she's going to be quite good for the Valkyries. Once she gets her sea legs in there, watch out for those Valks. Also, they just released their new mascot, Val the Valkyrie. A+ name right there, by the way. All right, but that is going to do it for the Pro Volleyball Federation portion of the show. I know it was a little bit more shorter than normal, and I didn't go in depth on each matchup, but we have to pave the way for the NCAA Men's Volleyball portion to close out the show. So I have made my prediction for the MIVA. I still have Ohio State winning that matchup, or winning the tournament. I have them beating Loyola and Ball State, beating Loyola in the semis and beating Ball State in the semis. And I still have Ball State advancing to the championship, but I have Ohio State winning the MIVA tournament. Now for the EIVA tournament. So we'll start with the quarterfinals. NJIT versus Harvard. Look, this was kind of a matchup where I actually had to look up, and I wanted to see how good NJIT was and Harvard was. I think NJIT has a little bit more firepower, and having beaten Harvard twice, I think those Highlanders can take down Harvard. Harvard may have the smarts, but NJIT, they got something that Harvard does not have. The Jersey grit. Speaking of New Jersey, Princeton takes on Charleston. All these matches are going to be played at Penn State's Rec Hall. But Princeton-Charleston, as up and down of a season as Princeton has had, I still think they're still very good. Ben Harrington is a fantastic player, and if it weren't for Penn State having an up and down season, I think he can be an All-American. But I got Princeton winning against Charleston. Then the semifinals, I have Penn State NJIT. I got the Nittany Lions advancing just because they have been so consistent, but they just got to be careful of that Jersey grit. It is actually a real thing. Though I think Toby Ezeonu is from New Jersey. Maybe. I could be thinking of Thomas Burrell, but I digress. And then we have Princeton George Mason. All right, this is a very tough matchup to predict. I think the two teams have split their series against one another. Look, George Mason is a fantastic team. They have Jack Bowles, and they also have Omar Hoyos. But for me, I think Princeton is going to figure it out. Princeton really shines in the EIVA tournament, and as good of a team as George Mason is, I think Princeton just barely ekes one out against the Patriots. So I think the Tigers aren't going to get their toes caught by the Patriots. So give me Princeton in the EIVA final over George Mason. And then the final, we have Penn State versus Princeton in the EIVA final. I'm taking Penn State. No offense to Sam Schweisky, former Set Point guest, but I think for me, Penn State they just have so much firepower. So give me the Nittany Lions over the Tigers, and Penn State will advance to the NCAA tournament. Then we have the SIAC. So the quarterfinal matchup, we have Kentucky State versus Benedict. I'm going to take Kentucky State. I'm just going to be realistic with y'all. The SIAC is kind of a little under the radar, and there's not too many teams that are well known outside of Fort Valley State and maybe Edward Waters. But I'll take Kentucky State to take down Benedict. And then we have Central State and Morehouse. Morehouse actually just snapped a 44-45 match losing streak this past week. But I got Central State beating Morehouse in the SIAC quarterfinals. And then the semis, we have Fort Valley State versus Kentucky State. Give me Fort Valley State. I think the Wildcats are just a cut above the rest in terms of the SIAC. They went undefeated in the regular season. Yes, I know the regular season is basically a whole different animal than the postseason and vice versa. But honestly, I think Fort Valley State is playing some of its best volleyball. And then we have Edward Waters and Central State. As much as I don't want to see, as much as I want to pick an upset, I think Edward Waters is just still too good, and I think Edward Waters will advance to the final. So give me Edward Waters in a close one. Now, this would imply that Fort Valley State would be the automatic qualifier, because even if Edward Waters does beat Fort Valley State, Edward Waters is ineligible for the NCAA tournament. But I got Fort Valley State winning the SIAC tournament championship. And that's just how it is, as I think Fort Valley State is still just a cut above the rest. Don't be surprised if Edward Waters wants to go out with a bang and not a whimper, so I still think Fort Valley State is just too good. I think they're just slightly better than Edward Waters, but who knows? Maybe Edward Waters musters up the courage to win the SIAC tournament. And then we have the... Did I do Conference of Carolinas? Uh-oh, I think I deleted it. Oh, great. I think I deleted it accidentally. So, yeah, the Conference of Carolinas. Yeah, I do have the Conference of Carolinas. So, first matchup, we have Mount Olive versus Barton. I'm going to take Mount Olive just because I think they're more consistent. And then Erskine versus King. As much as I want to pick King for this matchup, I think Erskine is just way more consistent. The problem with King this year is that they have a new head coach, and they're just not as consistent as they have been in years past. Like last year, they played their best volleyball up to that point. I mean, yes, the record doesn't do them any justice, but honestly, I think Erskine is just way better than King. And then in the semis, I got Belmont Abbey over Mount Olive. And then I also have North Greenville over Erskine. And then the final, I have Belmont Abbey versus North Greenville. And you know what? I'm actually going to take North Greenville to win it all. So here's something. The last year, North Greenville wound up winning the regular season title and then losing to King. I'm going to pick North Greenville to follow that trend. The last time we had a regular season and conference tournament champion was I think, Belmont Abbey. If not North Greenville from 2 years ago. But all in all, for North Greenville, I think their tough schedule is going to pay them dividends, just because I feel I just feel that they have a little bit more firepower. I think that with them having gone through some tough ups and downs, I think they can beat Belmont Abbey. I don't think nothing is guaranteed, obviously, but I will just say I think North Greenville, having all those tough losses, it's going to eventually come back to help them, because pressure just makes diamonds shine even brighter. But that is basically that for the Conference of Carolinas tournament. So next up we have which one should I do? Big West or M? Let's do eeny, meeny, miny, Big West. So Big West, this is going to be held at the University of Hawaii at Stan Sheriff Center or Simplify Arena. So in this regard, I am just going to say Hawaii plays such darn good volleyball at home. So it doesn't matter who you are, you basically are going to have to play your darndest when it comes to beating the likes of Hawaii. Because if you match up against Hawaii, you need to play your A game, because those fans are going to be loud. And the last time the Conference of Carolinas had a regular season champion winning the conference tournament, that was 2019 or 2022 when North Greenville defeated Mount Olive in 5 sets. So yeah, it was a couple seasons ago, but I'm going to take North Greenville to basically have the redemption arc from last year. So there you have it right there. All right, but now we jump on over to the Big West. So all this is taking place at the University of Hawaii or Simplify Arena. UC San Diego versus CSUN in the first quarterfinal. I got CSUN winning this one. I just think UC San Diego, even though they have that win over Hawaii, I think they're just too young. They're just young and inexperienced. I know CSUN had a little bit of trouble with UC Santa Barbara last weekend, but I will say I think CSUN is going to play their best in this one. I think they're going to play their best match against UC San Diego, and they have the Tritons number. I know UC San Diego wound up UC San Diego, like I said, they beat Hawaii, and they also have, and they finished fourth. But I think CSUN is just playing much. I think CSUN has the roster to win this one. I think CSUN has the athleticism and the roster to beat UC San Diego. And then the other quarterfinal is Hawaii versus UC Santa Barbara. This one's a no-brainer, and this is no knock on Santa Barbara, but I'm picking Hawaii to win this one. I think Hawaii is just way too good in this regard. I think Hawaii, they obviously got the bad match out of the way against UC San Diego. And they still have some good players. They have Luis Sakanoko, Teran Rodriguez running the offense effectively. So I'm going to take Hawaii. I mean, they're not going to lose in the first round of the Big West Conference Tournament at home, right? Right. And then the semifinals, I got CSUN and Long Beach State. I'm taking Long Beach State. I think the Beach has kind of found their swagger. I know they had a tough one against UC Irvine, but UC Irvine and CSUN are kind of two totally different teams. I just think Long Beach State, they had a lot on the line where UC Irvine, they didn't have much to lose except for like momentum. I think that Long Beach State beats CSUN. I think CSUN will make them sweat, but Long Beach State should handle this one fairly easily. And then the other semifinal, we have Hawaii, UC Irvine. I'm going to go bold here and say Hawaii wins it. Now, you got to remember, no Spiros Hakas, as he's out for the entire season with an ankle injury or a knee injury. But I think Hawaii gets the better of UC Irvine. I actually don't remember the last time UC Irvine beat Hawaii in Stan Sheriff Center, but it's not going to matter. I think Hawaii will be much better, and they'll be better prepared to take on the likes of UC Irvine. And yes, I know everyone's going to say, well, if UC Irvine didn't lose Nolan Flexen, they maybe would have won that second set. Oh, I agree, but Hawaii is just they're still up there in terms of talent. They've got Girheme Voss, Alakai Todd, Keone Tim, Ilu Choi. Like I said, Teran Rodriguez is doing well. And Luis Sakanoko is not going to have that terrible of a night like he did against UC San Diego. And then the Big West Conference Championship, I got Long Beach State versus Hawaii. Hawaii fans, forgive me for saying this, but I'm picking Long Beach State to win. I imagine there's going to be 10,000 plus in the Stan Sheriff Center or Simplify Arena cheering on Hawaii. But I will just say, I think Long Beach State still has the firepower. If Hawaii had Spiros Hakas, I would totally maybe pick Hawaii, but Long Beach State, I think, still has the firepower. Now, this will be quite interesting if Hawaii does beat Long Beach State. If Hawaii does beat Long Beach State, we have a bid stealer right there, because then Hawaii would get in as the automatic qualifier, and Long Beach State would have to be an at-large. Now let's jump on over to the MPSF. So let's start with the obvious one, the obvious first quarterfinal matchup, Grand Canyon, Concordia, Irvine. Am I really going to give this one too much thought? No. I'm picking Grand Canyon for this one. And then for Stanford, Pepperdine, I'm taking Stanford for this one. I think they could be a dark horse to win this tournament. If they play their cards right, they might actually have a shot to win. Remember, they have Will Rotman and Alex Rotman and Kevin Lamp and all those other guys, Nathan Litsky, Nathaniel Gates. The list goes on and on. And now for Pepperdine, or not Pepperdine, BYU USC. All right, so I am a firm believer of teams playing their best volleyball when it truly matters. And I think BYU is playing some good volleyball, even though they're coming off of a loss to USC. However, USC is hosting this whole MPSF tournament. This whole tournament is being played at Galen Center. Now, with that being said, USC also does not have Wes Smith. He's out for the year as he's got a foot injury, or he's out for an extended period of time. He's in a boot, as I eventually saw on Instagram. I'm like, so that's why Wes Smith isn't playing. So they got to go with Marcus Olson or Teddy Terrell. Yikes. No offense to those two, of course. But Wes Smith is just 6'11", and he is just a tower of power. But that being said, I'm going to pick USC to upset BYU. That's my shocker of my picks. I'm picking SC to upset BYU. 1, they will have the luxury of playing at home. 2, BYU is going to be rusty. 3, BYU is not going to be in Smith Fieldhouse. And 4, I think Dylan Klein and Jack Duker will go off. That being said, if USC does pull off the upset, they would face the highest remaining seed, which would be UCLA. And since UCLA is the 1 seed, they'd be playing them. And that being said, I think UCLA beats USC. I hate to say that for all my USC fans out there, but unfortunately USC just has so much firepower. Next year might be a little bit better, hence the word might. And then as for the other semifinal, I got Stanford, Grand Canyon. Well, as good of a team as Stanford is, I think Grand Canyon is just a little bit better. So give me the Lopes to take down Stanford. And then we got UCLA Grand Canyon. I know it's tough to beat a team 3 times in one season, but here's the thing. Grand Canyon does not have one top 5 win. Not one. They lost to Hawaii. They lost to UC Irvine. They lost twice to UCLA. Any other team that they've beaten is not in the top 5. That being said, UCLA is winning this one over Grand Canyon. But I hope we get a barn burner because I'm going to be at that MPSF final at the Galen Center. So please, UCLA and Grand Canyon, give me something to really like in that matchup. And then the selection Sunday will be this upcoming Sunday, I think at 10 a.m. Pacific time, which would be 1 p.m. Eastern. So you have that to note right there. So those are my picks. I'm picking UCLA from the MPSF, Long Beach State from the Big West, Fort Valley State from the SIAC, Penn State from the EIVA, Ohio State from the MIVA, and North Greenville from the Conference of Carolinas. All right, well, that's going to do it for my predictions on the NCAA men's volleyball side of things regarding the conference tournament. And ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for this week's episode of Set Point. It is that time to drop the beat, because I'm about to dip like a banana in chocolate. You feel me? Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Set Point. I appreciate y'all tuning in. If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen on the playback, I appreciate you. If you listen at work, I appreciate you. If you listen at any time, any place, anywhere, I truly appreciate you. Jen B said that Asia O'Neal is the only one that's playing on the U.S. U21 team. Thank you, Jen B. So I think the Columbus Fury will be better, but it's all about getting their team all on the court. But regardless, thank you to Jen B, as well as Ralph Calise and Patty Backs for popping into the chat room. I might be back with SoCal Supreme Sports Show on Thursday. We'll see. But until then, have a great rest of the week. Enjoy the volleyball action. I will see you all on Thursday at Galen Center for the MPSF tournament. Maybe Saturday. Peace!